Hey, all you Arizona lovers. This is the Finding Arizona podcast. I'm your host, Jose.
And I'm your producer, Brittany.
And here at Finding Arizona podcast, we collect the local stories of all entrepreneurs and from around the valley. So join us at findingarizonapodcast.com, where you can hear every episode and see it as well at
YouTube. Like, subscribe, and comment below who you want to see next on our show. And when you're ready to start your podcast, you found the right spot. Found House, your next podcast production company.
Now, let's get back to the show. Score big with SeatGeek. Whether it's concerts, sports, or live events, SeatGeek has you covered. Use code FindingArizona to get a fantastic $20 discount on your SeatGeek tickets. Catch your favorite live events hassle-free with extra savings. Visit SeatGeek.com and make every experience unforgettable. Welcome back, everybody, to the Finding Arizona podcast. I'm your host, Jose, and as always, we bring in fantastic guests every week. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd love to introduce you to Sallyann, who is the creator behind Heaven's Light Wellness. Welcome, Sallyann.
Thank you, Jose.
Absolutely. So I'm very enthusiastic about what we're going to be talking about because, my wife and I, we have our beliefs, we have our things that we get into, and just kind of your demographic and the people that you you work with and things like that. This is always something up my wife's alley, and I'm always more encouraged and open to hear about it and to kind of talk about it a little bit more. But I'd love our audience to hear it from the horse's mouth, as they say, is the relative term. So give us a little bit about not only your origin story, but what kind of services and practices you teach.
Well, I'm really excited that you're open to it because I have to tell you, I am like an old New Yorker. So I'm a little cynical, which I think is a good thing, kind of works in my favor sometimes.
Healthy skepticism is always good because you don't want to jump into the deep end too quickly and find yourself. Sometimes you're in a weird situation and it's too much. And I get it.
Yes, exactly. So I am a clairvoyant. Mm-hmm. And I'm an energy healer. So people say, what does that mean? I call myself a clairvoyant because of the way I get my messages. So I hear them, feel them, see them. And really it happened when I was in my 20s, so a really long time ago. Yeah. I was in a location with some friends, and there was a gentleman way far away from me, and he was standing in a strange position, something that wouldn't be comfortable for me. Yeah. And I remember feeling sad and despondent and all these things I knew I didn't feel. So at the time I ran back and called my mother on the phone and said, you have to come pick me up. I'm clearly having a nervous breakdown, right? Because, when you're 20, you know a lot. And she said, explain what's going on. So I kind of told her what was happening. And she was like, you're fine. You're just a psychic. And I was like, what does that mean? Right? I didn't even, that word was never used in my household, but really it's, my grandmother used to have dreams and tell me this was going to happen and then don't do that. And then of course I would, and she'd smack me on the top of the head and say, don't do that again. And my mother would answer the phone before caller ID and knew who was on the phone. But when you don't know, when you grow up in a certain way, you don't know that the world isn't like that. Yeah. So that was really my first hint that the world is different, that I'm different. Mm-hmm. And I went into training when I was in college. I think within 2 months, my mother found, it's called the Silva Mind Control at the time. Silva technique is still around. And we went into that and trained and understood what was happening and why I was seeing and feeling things. Yeah. So fast forward some 40 years later, and this is now what I do 100% of the time. Mm-hmm. About 10 years ago, I left the corporate world just to do this. I call it my heart work. And I help people get clarity so they can understand their lives. So beautiful. A lot of people are like, I knew that. I just need to hear it from someone they don't know.
Exactly.
Or I felt that, or, oh my gosh, that makes so much sense to me. Yeah. So basically what really happens is Jose is you or someone that comes to see me or on the phone. I have clients internationally. I'm very blessed.
Okay.
You would come and say, you give me permission to talk to your guardian angels.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
then I kind of tell you what I see, feel, hear. Someone once called me a director of like what I saw. And I said, well, I'm not directing it, but I can tell you all the nuances of what I see. So
Yeah.
this way, the
An
message.
interpreter of such. Yeah.
I love that word.
I
Thank you.
love that. Yeah, absolutely. Well, and in all, so I'll give you a little bit of my background. I grew up on an Indian reservation up in the Four Corners area.
Yeah.
And so for me, this level of kind of the Western mentality of thinking was not really a part of my life too much. It's in there somewhat, but it's this other half of me where it's this very much spiritual thinking and level of like nuance that you can't see everything in the world. And that part of that life has always been intriguing to me. And that has always been a part of growing up and the people around me, dealing with medicine men and talking to ancestors and just really getting to know that part of my world from
Mm,
that lens. And so meeting my wife, who is also kind of this very much, I would like to say, empathic individual who cares deeply, who has these kind of nuances about the world. She herself has just kind of embraced this level of like thinking and mentality and just empathic feelings and things like that that really resonate for me. And I think that's really what bonded us early or later on in the middle of our relationship. So what I tend to do is I tend to really let her speak from her heart and kind of introduce new ways of thinking or new ideas that she kind of comes across and allow myself to not only let my own history with things to kind of dictate or guide me in a sort of fashion, but also I also open it up because of her and because of how much I love her. And feel like she is way more open and way more some sort of way that I can't see, that
mm.
I trust and understand that she will guide me and help me see things in a new light. So that's why a lot of the holistic health is something that is very much a part of our family and our dynamic in our relationship. So thank you again for sharing your history with me, and I really do appreciate. And this is where my joy comes from because I can pull away from some of the stories that you brought to us here. I would love to just kind of pick at like because you brought in your family dynamic, and would love to understand like. Do you have a close? I imagine you did have a close tie with your grandmother, but even do you know any history about your great grandmother and even further back into your ancestry about maybe some more clairvoyance or some more other people who are in touch with that realm that you kind of came across or just heard about through storytelling?
Yeah. First of all, I'm tickled that you actually have someone in your life that you can love and really trust from in here and have like
Mhm.
that faith component.
Yeah.
I will tell you that I would say that, 10 years when I left the corporate world, I had a lot of faith and I would manifest like these crazy things that I wanted. I used to work on events.
Yeah.
So I'm like, oh, I want a hot air balloon. And a
How do
hot
I
air
make that
balloon shows
happen?
up.
And yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I love that. But even now, as I continue to do this work and really look into myself, it's amazing how faith, and it doesn't have to be religion, right? It's
Yeah.
spirituality.
Yeah.
It's having faith that something else is helping me, like the
Mhm.
universe is working in my favor, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Um, I have very little fear in my life, and I am
Beautiful.
grateful for that. And I would love the rest of the world to have that.
Yeah.
Um, so yes, both of so my grandmother, absolutely, her grandmother,
Mhm.
absolutely, and on my father's side, not my mother's side,
Okay.
though my mother and I have had lots of lives together,
Hmm.
it's the journey, right,
Yeah.
Jose? It's the journey of getting where I am today and where I'm going to be in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. And so I find these beautiful moments or people that come into my life and gift me this
Hmm.
knowledge that is fascinating. So one of my past, so I see my guardian angels, they're always with me. I call upon them.
Yeah.
I have a big, giant guardian angel with big dark wings, and he lets me call him George. That's not
Oh,
his real name, but I
yeah.
can't even pronounce his real name.
Yeah.
And so George is always present with me, but I also have another guardian angel, and her name's Eileen.
Hmm.
And one time I was driving with my mother, like in the 70s, so before you had to wear a seatbelt. And I
Oh, I
remember,
know.
yeah, right. All of a sudden, I was like, "Oh my gosh, we have to put our seatbelts on." So we put our seatbelts on, and I remember saying to my mother, "Eileen is telling me to put our seatbelts on." So we put our seatbelts on. We're driving in this little Corvette. My mother's kind of a speed demon, and in a good way, in a good
Yeah.
way. And sure enough, we got like a couple of yards, and someone cut us off.
Oh,
And
wow.
because she's such a good driver, we didn't get into an accident. It was on like it was on Scottsdale Road in like Thomas, right? Like
Okay. Okay.
a long, long time ago. Um, and she swerved and we were fine, no accident, but we were definitely jostled.
Yeah.
And it's like, lucky thing we had our seatbelts on.
Hmm.
And I remember saying, why do I know that or something? And my mother said, well, my guardian angel told me to put our seatbelts on. I'm like, no, mine did. Well, winds up that me and my mother, who we do have a fantastic relationship, and this guardian, her name is Eileen, we keep coming back into lives together.
Hmm.
But sometimes we're mothers, sisters, not brothers. We're always sisters. We're always female when we come back into this life. So, but we just keep switching places. So the three of us are completely connected, which I would have never thought could happen like here
That's awesome.
in this human life. So
That's awesome.
yeah.
And it's really nice to have that kind of relationship to say with your mother. And I think that's the level too of like the fearlessness and just allowing yourselves to trust one another on that scale too, where it's like, you'll be all right. When we're together, we are safe and we are one and we are going to be looked after. That's really nice. And I feel bonded to my own mother in some sort of way where it's this feeling of passing down knowledge where I tend to listen to her a fair amount of more than my own father, but it's just this level of connection that we share. I feel like that bonds us not only as mother and son but deeper than that as well. We tend to enjoy very similar things, and we are very much educational. Like, we love stories, we love teaching ourselves. They say my mom's back in school. She's like getting her bachelor's degree and she's working hard towards that goal. So I've got mine. And so she's just like inspired by me, which I'm inspired by her. And we go back and forth in that manner. So, but yeah, absolutely. And thank you again, for sharing that kind of story, because I go back and I look at what you said to me on just like what you guys feel and how you guys are connected. And so that leads me into your education and how that may affect some of the things that you do on a daily basis, or even just hearing the feedback from your guardians. So you brought up going to go get an education from a third party system, and sometimes third party systems can influence us in certain manners. I would love to, like, did I imagine that they do have a process that will enhance certain things that you were already intrigued about or questioning. But also, do you ever worry that it might have stirred you one way where you could have gone another way? Or do you feel like your own intentions or your own guardians would have kept you on the path that you were going down anyways?
Okay, so I have a story. This is funny that you should say this. Okay,
Yeah.
so I was a New York City advertising girl,
Yeah.
right? So my 20s and early 30s, I was in Manhattan. I used to fly all the time. Every 6 weeks, I was flying to like Florida or someplace for work.
Nice.
Well, as a clairvoyant and walking through an airport, there's a lot of spirit in airports. I have to
Oh
tell you.
yeah.
Oh
There's,
my
I mean, you like an airport in general, there's so much emotion, so much every person doing their own thing, but I can imagine you walking through being so open and just, taking all that energy in. That's got to
Mhm.
be another level of like bombardment, like just
Yes. Exactly. Exactly. And so one day I was coming home. So I'm at JFK. I'm coming home and I can really hear them. And they're like, she can see us. She can hear us. And they're keeping up with me. And this one spirit just keeps coming, coming, coming. And I remember I stopped like right in the middle of the flow. And I was like, what? I turned and I looked at him and he said, okay, in two gates, yellow sweater, yellow book, yellow sweater, yellow book. And I was like, what? I was like, all right. He goes, you have to tell her whatever the message was.
Mhm.
I don't remember messages because they're not for me.
Yeah.
So I'm like, all right, let's see. And in the olden days, every gate actually was its own room. Now that it's
Oh, okay.
open, that's not
Yeah.
how it used to be. Every gate had its own room. So I'm like, okay, two gates. I walk up two gates. I turn and I look. And sure enough, there's a blonde woman in a yellow sweater reading a yellow book. I'm like,
Nice.
okay,
Here I go.
yeah, here I go. Because that old phrase with knowledge comes responsibility. I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, I got to walk through this door. So I walk up to her and I said, hi, you don't know me, but did your Uncle Fred die 3 months ago? And she looked at me like,
How do you
yeah.
know
And I
that?
said, okay, he wants you to know this, and whatever the message was.
Yeah.
I said, does that make sense to you? And she was like, yes. Oh my gosh. I said, okay. And then, I'm like, I'm out. So I go back into the throngs of flow of people and I disappear and I've never seen her before and never seen her after. But at that moment, I remember saying, did I do the right thing? Right?
Yeah.
Should I have told her that message because I'm serving those that have passed instead of those that are living? And so that was really a pivotal time in my life when I said, I am only going to serve the living, those that can communicate with me when they're ready. So you'll never see a billboard with my face on it, or at least today,
Yeah.
but the idea is that people come to me when they need me. So they hear about me, I guess, through podcasts or from other people,
Sure.
because I don't want to affect them. Now, years later, I remember thinking, because clearly this is one story that sticks with me, right?
Yeah, absolutely. When you affect someone on just a random scale, like just never met, never had any kind of
Mhm.
interaction. Yeah, some of those things were just, I can imagine, just stick with you because
Yeah.
again, it's like you don't know the ripple effect.
And that was my thing, right? So that's why I decided to stop. Because what if she was going to a big board meeting? I mean, I was a corporate girl. What if she was doing something that this kind of
Mhm,
adjusted what she should have been doing or the mindset that she was in? Now,
mhm.
thank God she was reading a romance or something. So I know she was relaxing. But years later, I remember asking specifically about that moment. And they said, to your point, universe, source, God, whatever your word is,
Mhm.
would never have let you do that if it would have affected her in a negative way.
Got it.
And so while I don't walk up to people in the grocery store and say, hey, I'm really sorry that your dad died. He's right here. He wants to hug you.
Yeah.
Right. I don't do that because I don't think it's my place. I think, and I have very, very good friends. Heck, my husband is like an accountant.
Mhm.
He's asked for a reading once. I have known this man 35 years. It's like he doesn't want to know. He's like, he
The
totally
fear
believes,
of it.
he
Yeah.
understands, he's supportive. Go do it. I see what you're doing and how you're affecting others in such a positive way. But it's not like in his wheelhouse. It's not, he believes it, but he doesn't want to know it.
Yeah.
So I don't want to put that belief, that information
Mhm.
on somebody else. So
Yeah.
as those third parties come into my life,
Mhm.
I walk through the door, Jose, and that's
Yeah.
something I say all the time. Is it time to me to walk through that door? I know I say it for
Mhm.
my kids and my clients. I'm like, when it shows up, there's a reason it shows up.
Yeah. Well,
So
I think that's a level of code that you live by too. It's again, you're not opening, you can only do so much to listen to yourself and what you have in your heart, and again, the level of context that we're talking about here is affecting someone on a negative scale where like you said, the universe, whatever it may be, is not guiding us into a negative, it's just trying to share itself with them. So it's not up to you to be, or it's not up to us to like put it on them.
right,
Whereas we're like pushing them through the door. You can really only give them so much to get up to the door, and it's up to them to open it and walk through. And so I love that for you.
100%.
I love that you have that code in your own heart and what you believe in, so that it's not kind of forced upon the world and forced upon the individual, so that it's again more of this, allow me to help you and not me forcing my hand on your will, so that
Mhm.
it is kind of this level of like, yeah, you can come to me, you can trust that I will do what I can to help you to that door frame, and you must walk through it yourself. um Great,
Exactly.
wonderful. And this is kind of, again, it's like, so I've come across, so this is, it's funny, we had someone who was in here for photography, but her mother was a clairvoyant and has a school that she teaches and kind of educates others on that. And it's so interesting, she has her own podcast, she has this own school system, and so on. It's so funny to me how you have this code of ethics where it's like, you'll never see my face on a billboard, whereas they actually were approached by television. I believe it was, I don't want to put a channel name on it, but it was like television. They wanted to, capture the education process, kind of storytelling and whatnot, and they really accepted it. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. I don't know how the world will perceive them through that lens of like that opportunity. So it's this kind of juxtaposition of like, do you show what we're trying to do here, or do you not show what we're trying to do here? And how do the individuals who are seeking or not seeking the help that the universe is trying to provide on that grandiose scale, like, and how they take it upon? And I find it so fascinating. So my question to you is like, I don't know if you are a television watcher, TLC or something like that. Has there something ever stood out? Because I can tell you, I've come across was it her name? The New Jersey Medium?
Yes, Long Island Medium, right?
Long Island Medium. Yes,
Yes,
I've come across,
Teresa.
yes, her content I've come across before, and it's so. And then there's the Hollywood guy, the younger gentleman
Yes,
with
right.
the comb over hair, blonde comb over hair, and he speaks to the famous people and about their, their guardians and their past lives and their relatives who have passed and things like that. So it's kind of interesting. Um, those two realms of like, do I trust the storytelling on this scale of like that? And I just wanted to know, do you watch or come across that content, and if so, what about it has either spoke to you, or what about it has kind of affected, what you're trying to do on your own path?
I think that they're both super talented.
Mm.
I actually, so I was watching the Long Island Media many, many years ago. I haven't seen her new series. Um, and she is really good. She did used to be, working out at the gym and then talking to somebody, kind of like the experience that I had at the airport that
Yeah.
I chose not to do anymore.
Yeah.
And part of that is I live in a small town. Well, anything small from New York
Mhm.
City, but I didn't want people to run into me at the grocery store and say, "Oh my gosh, she knows my deepest, darkest,"
Yeah.
because that's for you. That's your information to hold and love. So I think on those television shows, if someone is open to sharing their message, then good for them. So if Tyler goes to see a celebrity and the celebrity's like, yeah, you can film me because I want to share that message.
Yeah.
I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
Yeah.
That. Um, I love that people are open to it and they understand that it's a credible source.
Hmm.
Because, man, if you can listen to those angel whispers that you get, the world would be such a different place because
Hmm.
you'd have more faith in yourself and what you're supposed to do, and that you can walk through and help yourself, right? Because we get stuck.
Hmm.
So, am I opposed to that? Absolutely not. I think that there's a place. I think there's a reason that we get messages.
Yeah.
And yes, I mean, clearly I do podcasts, I have a YouTube channel, I
Yeah.
communicate a lot of that information. And, the goal is to help. Well, 8 years ago, the goal was to help 1 million people. Now the goal is to help 10 million people.
Awesome.
So if this is how I can help others feel empowered to themselves, then I'm open to it. I do think, though, that you should watch those things and understand those things if it speaks to your heart.
Yeah.
I'm not ever going to tell anybody, go do your homework and watch Tyler or watch,
Hmm.
the Long Island Medium if it makes you uncomfortable, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
that is the beautiful thing about content is we get to watch what resonates with us.
Hmm.
We don't have to watch because there's 3 channels,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So I think
It,
if it talks to you, then you should do it.
yeah. It's like one of those things that's like choice, like inevitably, like choice is it our own decision or is it not? And how we look at it and frame it in our own context. It's again, like that's why I'm kind of asking these bigger questions just because I don't know how to say if like the Guardians, are they making me watch it or am I just choosing to watch it sort of deal? And I'm always so hesitant to say choice is out of my hands when it should be. I should be more of like I chose to do certain aspects. This is my own choice to do things, and I love going back and forth because it does make me feel better about like okay, like I want to be open. I want to be um not closed off to what is not in front of my eyes.
Mhm.
And so that's just something that I struggle with on a routine basis of like choice and things like that. And so I will go ahead and move forward on to making this business come to more light and you prevailing, helping others and things like that. What was the first inclination to you after maybe schooling and things like that, that you can turn this into helping others on this scale? Like make it I guess the word is profitable, but I don't want to say you're profiting too much. I mean, you're trying to help people. So it's like how did this come to light where Heaven's Light is now kind of its own entity?
So about 8 years ago, I left the corporate world.
Hmm.
I used to run large corporations. I was a director of marketing and promotions for large companies, but always had like this philanthropic side to me that I've always loved.
Yes.
Well, all of those 30 years, of course, I still talk to my angels and my friends would ask me questions. And it was something I still always did. It is who I am. It is
Yeah.
part of
Yeah.
my humanness. I can't deny it. I won't deny it. And um, and I remember well, actually, I have to tell you, I used the phrase that God kicked my ass. And he was like, nope, we're done. Like, I'm done waiting for you. The world
Yeah.
needs people like you. And that was really like my message. And there's a
Okay.
whole bunch of things that happened. I actually have a book coming out with Tony Robbins and Jim Britt.
Nice.
So I think I'm going to be chapter 2 or 4, but the whole story is in there, like how that my awakening really to the business component,
Okay.
and yeah, so that book comes out next month, pretty much next month,
Did
and
you take a class with Tony at all, or was there any kind of influence from another individual, or was it mainly just your position in life and being told to go this route?
A little bit of both.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
while I haven't sat in on a lot of what Tony talks about. I totally think that we're very well aligned.
Mhm.
And Jim Britt actually gave Tony his first job, and he's in his 80s. And we sat down and had like a 3 hour conversation. I was like, oh my gosh, you're an amazing man, and was introduced to him through another guy that I've been working with for about 10 years who just kind of showed up in life. And I was like, okay. So his name's Manny Lopez, and
Okay.
he says, you're too blessed to be stressed. So started working kind of with Manny, and then Jim came into my life about a year ago,
Mhm.
and then this opportunity showed up, and I thought, that's what I have to do.
Nice.
And because what I started to do is develop things that would help others empower themselves.
Mhm.
So I have angel cards. So they're a deck of angel cards, and you can shuffle them and get a positive affirmation message when you need it,
Mhm.
right? Because, well, I want to talk to 10 million people. That's probably going to be impossible for me to do 10 million one-on-ones, right? For
Yeah,
the rest of
yeah.
my life. So how do I empower people to get what they need? So I produce these angel cards, and they're beautiful. They're positive affirmations. You can get them on my website. I do angel card pulls once a week.
Mhm. I
So
saw that on your social media. That's
did you?
really great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was going to say it's on all my social media. So this way people can get those messages.
Mhm.
And then, developed like a gratitude journal, right?
Yeah,
So it's
yeah.
an empowerment journal, but it's not like list the 25 things I'm grateful for. There's nothing wrong with that. But this really asks you questions to kind of
Mm.
get through and process things. So you're learning, but slowly.
'Kay.
And then there's the gym book. It's called Breaking the Rich Code because it's more about what your life is like.
Mhm.
And then there's the empowerment approach. So that is something that's coming up. I think by August, that other book should be out. And it's more about empowering ourselves, because what I realized, Jose, is that what I do is empower people to understand that they're hearing the right messages, getting
Yeah,
those
yeah.
angel whispers so they can walk through life in the right way. So when I first meet with a client, I'm like, yeah, we can talk about the past, the present, and the future.
Yeah.
And the future is the most likely thing that will happen today because God gives us free will.
Mhm.
So I'm not pushing someone through the door. I can't do that. It's ethically not something I would ever do. You have to do that. Yes, I can, like you said, I can help you see the door, but realize really the journey of life is walking through those doors that present
Mm.
themselves.
Mhm.
And that's how we grow. That's how we accomplish things spiritually in our life and in our humanness, right? But
Yeah.
if I really don't want to walk through that door, I'm not going to, but it may show up again, and
Mhm.
it may show up again, and it may show up again. So it keeps giving us the
Yeah.
opportunity to walk through the door.
Absolutely.
So,
I
and
love
I
that.
think we walk through the door when we feel empowered, when we feel who we are, when we understand
Mhm.
what this is, what our power is here and here, and
Yeah.
then we can make the choice to go through.
I
So,
love I love that. And truly there were I just am at a point too in my own life where those kinds of opportunities, messages keep, like you said, repeating itself in some sort of fashion, some sort of way. And I'll let you in on a little bit of what we do with this podcast too. It's like these stories have always been kind of a passion project. And I've always kept it that way. And I've always tried to like, okay, I love collecting. I feel like, and I said this in another podcast, I feel like a librarian where I'm,
mm,
I have my collection, I have my ones that I like to pull out and revisit, and I love them. They're all there for me to enjoy and for others to enjoy as well because we share them. And it's for some reason I just feel better about having them and collecting them. It's really this last couple of years, after the pandemic, where my wife and I have come together of understanding that there's nothing wrong with having these and also benefiting off of collecting them and sharing them.
Absolutely.
We're still doing what we're doing, but now we can utilize them on another level. So that's where the actual like business part of what we're doing, podcasting, and now we help service others to you know produce their own podcasts, edit for them. We try and do our best to share those stories that we can't just collect ourselves. Some people have their stories that they and their other means of networking and things like that, but what we can do is help them make sure that it's done right or done on a way that they want it to be done so that we can all benefit from them. I can listen to them, they can share them,
Yeah.
and so on and so forth. So it's not just me, the single librarian. Now there's multiple libraries to go to that you can trust and understand that they're going to come with great intention, great purpose, and great service. So that for me has always been kind of like this new opportunity that has come across my table that I've now started to kind of embrace a little bit more. And I've always told myself, it's not what you're, because the negative side of my mind is like, oh, why are you trying to profit off this passion project? No, it's not that anymore. What you're trying to do is help service more opportunities for others to share their stories and collect and become these librarians, these story collectors.
Yeah.
And so now I feel better about what we do as far as a service product and things that we do from that realm. And we still have our podcast, we still do the things over here, but it's still now an opportunity to grow our business and be better at in sharing these stories and sharing with others. So I always, again, it's like I have these ways of connecting with the entrepreneurs, and you telling me to do these types of things really resonates and helps me understand that what I am doing is the right thing and right way of what we're trying to grow and become into. And so now I feel even more pride about our path and more energetic about keeping strong down where we're going. So thank you,
You're
Sally.
you're welcome. I mean, I love that you kept saying it's your passion project
Mhm.
because you know what? You know what they say, right? Love your
Mhm.
job and you never work a day in your
Yep,
life. I mean,
absolutely.
to have passion about anything, that's what makes it special. That's what makes you different. That's what makes you want to achieve and continue to be
Absolutely.
more. And the reality is unfortunately that the world doesn't put value in free.
Mhm. Yep.
There's too much free. And I learned that a lot in the corporate world when I was very philanthropic. And if you gave something for free to people, they're like, oh, yeah, sure, I'll take it because we're collectors of things, but there's no value in it. But if
Yeah.
I have to do an exchange of energy, right? Money, service, time. If there's that exchange, then people realize I'm giving of whatever I have, my
Mhm.
time, my money, to someone else because I value them, because I
Yes.
value what they have to say. So I do understand that there is like that kind of like really slippery area in between. It's like, well, if I love it, do I get to make money off it,
Mhm.
right? Do I get to do that? But the reality is if we don't, there's no value.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
if there's no value, then the passion dies. And then all those other people, right? The majority of the world and the majority of your clients that love you, want you, appreciate your value, won't have you because
Yeah.
of like one or two, which I know is how the world has always told us to believe the few, the negative and the few in our lives instead of the abundance that tells us,
Mhm.
do it, you're fabulous, we want you.
Yeah.
So do it, you're fabulous, we want you. Keep going. Like
Thank
I
you.
want to say that
Thank
to
you.
everyone because that's what we're supposed to do. If we have passion, oh my gosh, we can change the world.
Yeah. And I can just hear the passion coming from you and how you speak and encouraging and like you said, guiding people and interpreting those things. I can feel that energy coming off of you. And I find it very and it just brings me joy because that's what I want from all of the people who come on our podcast is to share that joy, share that passion so that I've always felt like if you share that more people everywhere who are listening are more inclined to say yes to
Mhm.
whatever you have coming, whether it's an event, services, product, whatever it may be, they're more open to that because they hear it from you and they can materialize it and just kind of understand it a little bit more because you are so passionate about it. You show that passion and it will resonate from you, and more people I think will just be tied and connected to you as well.
Right. Yeah. Change your vibration. You can
Mhm.
do it. Right.
Absolutely.
So I love that.
You had brought the idea of a beginning, middle, and kind of goals and the future, the very early on and where you are now and now in the future. That's what we tend to do here at our podcast, and we're going to lean towards the future and maybe some goal setting for you as well. I know you brought up the 10 million of help affecting 10 million lives, and I think you're doing that too. May I just say, by what you have with your cards, with your books, and everything like that. But is there something else that you can give light to our listeners that you want to achieve or that you have in mind for this year that our listeners can help make it happen or help you make that goal come to life?
What a great question. I see. I'm not good at always asking for what I need. So thank you, Jose. You're pushing me.
No
Do
problem.
something I need to do. um, I would love to grow the YouTube channel so more people can see it. Again, if
Awesome.
I can grow any of our social media channels, which are all Heaven's Light Wellness, we're trying to make this as easy as possible. Then more people can get messages and tell me what their need is.
Mhm.
Because the world changes. And sometimes, yeah, that message is very similar. It doesn't matter if I'm talking to someone in Mexico or Taiwan or Australia.
Mhm.
Um, the messages are sometimes very similar as to what the need is. But I know that things evolve. And even like the empowerment approach, the book that's coming out, that's 8 years in the making. Those are
Wow.
4 techniques that continually hit me. And then I talk about, and people have used, so this way they can become, and I can,
Mhm.
because I've used the tools, it makes me a better person as well. So I would say keep, listening, subscribe, talk to me, ask me what you need. And what I'm also going to say that really has very peripheral effects on me
Mhm.
is to be kind to you and to be kind to your community and tell people that you love them or care about them or support them, because the more we can help the world in kindness and in
Mhm.
love and encouragement and empowering, like if I tell somebody else how fabulous they are, I'm empowering myself too, right? Because
Yeah.
all of a sudden I'm using my words and I'm being complimentary authentically. It's
Yeah.
always,
Yeah.
always have to be authentic, right?
Yes.
But you can help the world, you can help yourself, you never know how one thing can affect another human, even just down the road.
Yeah.
It has shown up in so many ways in my life, and I'm so grateful that I just get to sit and enjoy, right?
Mhm.
And it's a choice some days, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
you have to choose happy, because it's easy to not choose happy, but the more you choose happy, the more you change the neuroplasticity of your brain. And then the easier it is to have gratitude every day and to be
Yeah.
happy every day. So I hope that um, people can follow me, share my message so they can live in this beautiful place that, yes, things happen. But for the most part, like life can be beautiful,
Yeah.
depending on how
Absolutely.
you choose to look.
Yeah. Your choice is right in front of you.
Mhm.
You gotta take the leap and have some faith. And I
Sure.
think that's one of those great moments that I think we've kind of, again, I like to say, have touched a little bit of what we've done here in our podcast and kind of repeated with a previous episode that I just recorded. And she had this motto that I thought was beautiful. It's just give to give.
Mm.
Whether you think it's gonna help or not, just give to give, because that little thing could really make a big difference in someone else's world, and that ripple effect, you never know the possibilities. And so, like you said, just as simple, even I love you to, just it will change someone's life and put a smile on that face of someone who needs it. And that ripple effect of like maybe that smile leads to that person helping another person and helping another person. And then it's so beautiful that what we can do just on a simple scale of being nice and sharing love and sharing light. It's it really does make a big
Mhm.
effect on people. So I thank you for your time. Thank you, Sally, for everything that you've shared here today. I have no doubt that you're going to make a big effect on the world at hand, and the the universe is guiding you in the right light, right journey path, and keep doing what you're doing because I have total acknowledgement of like who you are as a guide and as someone who's here put on this world to do something special like this. I hope that you will continue to do so with strength and encouragement. And for me, especially, keep going. And I
Thank
appreciate
you.
you. Yeah, absolutely. So you did bring up where you can find you a little bit on social media. This is your chance to really, 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 really promote everything: events, social media, website, phone number, if there is one, anything and everything under the sun. Because I know you have a couple of events too coming up. So I hope that you will tell us a little bit more about that. But please promote, promote, promote before we leave today.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Yes, it's heavenslightwellness.com is the website. You'll find all the events, questions, a lot of services that I do. So, yes, definitely angel messages. I am a Reiki master and healer. I've been working with energy for 40 years. So, if you have any persistent or new emotional or physical pain, I can help you with that. I do group Reiki classes. There's one happening August 14th up in
Nice.
Anthem. I have a series with the Holland Center, which is in North Scottsdale. So that's September through April. So we have a monthly series with them. So you can check us out again on event
Nice.
on our page and Eventbrite. They usually pop up on, and then all the social medias. We have Heaven's Light Wellness. You'll find messages and positive affirmations and angel card pulls. And I even work on horses. I am
Oh,
a
awesome.
huge equestrian and work with a lot. I was brought up like as an equestrian. I'm
Yeah.
not one now, but I work with horses all the time, and they are the most amazing animals. So if you own a horse, own a barn, are a racer. I have a lot of clients that are in that realm, and
Mhm.
I can actually talk to them for you and help you understand them or your children or your pets at home. So, a lot of just space where angels or other communication may come if you need to talk to someone that's passed or work through any anger and anxiety from those moments. I am not a licensed therapist. I am not a doctor, but I can see what's going on in your system, and we can fix it through that Reiki energy and through, the gifts that I have.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you
Yeah.
so much for everything. I appreciate your time. Thank you for sharing who you are. And we do have a little bit of an outro for us. It's just really quick. You can follow everything at our podcast website, findingarizonapodcast.com. We make it easy for you guys to connect with us through social media, Finding Arizona Podcast under everything. And if you want to send a direct line, let us know who you want in next, findingarizonapodcast@gmail.com. And we end every conversation that we've had for the last 400 plus episodes with kisses, hugs, and belly rubs to our four-legged friends. We will see you next time. Bye-bye, y'all.